Trump's funny, but he's a billionaire propped up by other billionaires. I think he's part of just the complex that runs our country, and I don't think he's any different.
Right.
The only person that I like...
It's going to be a challenge to see if he is. Like, I mean, he'll think, you know...
He was already... That's the other weird thing. He was already... We're talking about him like he's this shaking up force. He was already fucking president.
Stavros Halkias was a guest on Theo Vance's show, and he broke down the failures of the Democratic Party in running against Trump, as well as breaking down many of the problems with Donald Trump himself. I think this is really interesting because he's an incredibly smart guy, and he critiques the Democrats from the left, which you don't see happening on these bro podcasts with so many of these conservative comedians. He's someone who's actually on the left and provides some real insight, in my opinion, as to what the Democrats should be doing. So we're going to take a look at these clips of Stavros Halkias on Theo Vance's show. I will share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into it together.
Oh, he's so fun. But that like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you the guys. He's so funny. But
so it's the courts. So that's one thing that people, because I just hear that a lot. People are like, I'm so scared. Like, what are you fucking like? That's a part. I just never believe the government's going to affect my life that much.
I agree with you. The president doesn't have that much power. And if it wasn't for the Supreme Court, I would be like, who really gives a fuck? Democrats didn't run any kind of coherent campaign. They don't want to. I hope this will make, because look, my politics are further left than that. I'm not a Democrat registered. Bernie is the only guy I liked in a long time because I thought he was the only human being who was like a real person of integrity. I think Donald Trump just is the idea that he's different from politicians is crazy. He's a rich guy who had, he grew up rich.
He's a class president for sure type.
Yeah, and it's like his dad, he was like his dad was a slumlord. He's just a rich guy who's fucked over people on deals forever. I have class issues, right? I tend to not trust super rich guys, and I don't see how he's going to do anything different. I think it's naive to think he's going to be different than, I understand not trusting the Democratic establishment, but it's like, to me, Trump's funny, but he's a billionaire propped up by other billionaires. I think he's part of just the complex that runs our country, and I don't think he's any different.
Right.
The only person that I like...
It's going to be a challenge to see if he is. Like, I mean, he'll think,
He was already... That's the other weird thing. We're talking about him like he's this shaking up force. He was already president.
And that Stavros has such a great point here, and this doesn't get talked about as much by the media, that Trump still has this aura of that he's an outsider. And like Stavros is saying, the guy's a billionaire. He's been rich for a long time. He's been in the public eye for decades and decades. He was already president once. This idea that he is somehow an outsider, and he's bringing in all of these neocons into his second administration when it was like, he's going to be the anti-war guy and all of this nonsense. It's just not true. But somehow Trump, just because he insults people and doesn't talk in the same way that a lot of politicians do, like he doesn't go down to Alabama and use a Southern accent. He doesn't pretend to be anything other than a guy from New York, but he's still able to play on this idea of being an outsider, which is just, it's really insane, but it's interesting as well.
He's not new. That's what's weird.
Both of them were that was a fallacy both of them had. It was like, and Kamala's like, it'll be different. Like,
I know, and
go home and make it different right now.
And that's why absolutely, you're in power right now. Do something. God knows Joe ain't doing shit. That guy's been having ice cream for 6 months.
I know, and they pretended. And when that's what lost me as a Democrat. That's when they lost me, was when they lied about, or when I just didn't like the way they treated that old man.
Yeah.
It's not cool, because then he believes he's doing great.
Totally.
So he wakes up every day.
Different.
He's listening to the music. He's fighting for his bike. He's looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they doing here?
He's looking awesome.
What is this,
honestly,
dude? Is this the end of Amazing Race? To heaven?
It looks like he's just about to finish a marathon.
Yeah, and they're like,
but he just got out of his car.
And they're still pretending every day. They just told him the other day he's the mayor of Wisconsin.
And he's like,
and they're giving him unlimited.
Can I have some cheese curds?
Yeah, unlimited ice cream and milk.
Well, and that's why I agree with you. I think they made a huge mistake in running him again. Like when he ran the first time, it's like, I get it. People were scared of another thing of Trump. So like put some middle of the road ass Democrat, but then they should have had an open primary. Like,
Yeah,
where
it just seems like a railroaded thing.
People could actually vote on the issues they care about, and they just didn't do that. And she even had an opportunity to, if she came out with any, I'm just pissed off.
She didn't release any new music.
There was nothing new.
That's it.
It was all Biden remixes, and nobody liked Biden.
Yeah, and you can't just.
And Stavros and Theo Vaughn exactly right as this as well. And, we're going to be talking about this until the end of time, but they should have sat Joe Biden down at least a year ago, if not 2 years ago, and said, all right, Joe, you gave it your all for one term. There's not going to be a second one. You're too old. We need to bring in some new blood, and had a real primary. And would Kamala have won that? Who knows? I suspect she probably wouldn't have, but you get all your candidates out there and the best one wins, theoretically, even though in 2020 they put the thumb on the scale, so Bernie couldn't get it. But if you have a real primary, hopefully you have a good candidate to go up against Trump, and they didn't do that. It's funny that there wasn't some mechanism in place prior to move Biden out and to have a real primary. And, I listened to a lot of shows and read a lot of articles where it was like, well, he's the president, he controls it. No, you have a party, you have a system in place to deal with a candidate who's too old, doesn't have the mental capacity anymore, whatever, they get sick. Instead of just saying, well, they're the president, they control everything. And of course, we saw after that horrible debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump that there is a mechanism in place. They can do it if they want to.
Just hit, and she tried to go after blacks with a mixtape. You got
a little production.
Yeah, she dropped a lot of diss tracks.
Yeah, but nothing new.
No, just didn't hit.
Yeah.
But look, man, I think it's just crazy how I don't know. It'll be interesting. It's a lot of pressure to see. I'm most excited about RFK, and JD Vance was super cool when he came on the podcast. He's a human. Trump's hard to get to know.
I don't know that JD. To me, he seems like a traditional, just say whatever it takes to get elected snake, to be honest with you. I know, you had him on, he was cool here, but he was a guy who said he hated Trump. He said something about women. Like, I just think he's and venture capitalist guys are firms to begin with. I don't trust JD Vance at all. I think he's a piece of shit also.
Really?
So yeah. I mean, I think he's a cut in the regular ass Republican that'll say anything to get into power. He sucked Trump's cock after saying he called him Hitler or whatever. And he made a complete turn when he realized it was politically advantageous to be on Trump's side. I think he also is just a run-of-the-mill piece of shit politician. Like, I just do. And that's the thing.
I think
it's
all
weird.
Politicians is a weird thing to be, right?
But that's what I'm saying.
Say that.
That's what I'm saying is, like, I've never been excited about, the politics I've been excited about was Obama when I was 18.
Same, I voted for Obama.
And I think he did have a real opportunity to do something, and it turned out he didn't really do shit. And then he didn't, man.
Yeah, but that's the foul. That's the thing that always happens.
Yeah. At least that was something that was like, and I think part of that was Obama was just too inexperienced. I think if he had a little more, he didn't know what he was doing with the Senate. The healthcare thing got completely thin. Universal healthcare.
I had Obamacare.
It was bad. It was. They ended up
some cups. I saw a set of cups they sent me.
Nice, dude. You got a mug.
Huh?
That's the yeah.
No, it's like kind of like some plastic cups of it. I still use them.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. But he got worked over by thinking he could actually find common ground with the Republicans. They should have just rammed the legislation down their throat. They had both houses at the time. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
The only person I was excited about was Bernie, because I think he was actually in that run in 2016. He was like,
he would have been cool.
Would have been cool, but the Democrats shut that shit down.
Hey man, well, I like Vance as a guy. Seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah.
I know that like he's like, they say like Peter Thiel is like the guy that got him in office, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then you start to see that all these guys have backers. Will things be different with some of these guys? I don't know. I think
no. And Theo Vaughn is right that all these guys have backers and everything. It's interesting that I like that Stavros doesn't hold back at all on JD Vance, that he just seems like a worm. And, Theo Vaughn talks about that he seems like a human being, and maybe behind the scenes, JD Vance is. But like Stavros is saying, he just seems like the ultimate politician where he's slimy. He doesn't seem like a normal person. You don't feel like you can trust anything that he's saying. And he's completely flip-flopped on his views in terms of, not that long ago saying that Trump was Hitler and all of that. And now he's sucking up to Trump. So Stavros is exactly right about this. And this is another one of the failings of the Democrats where people are saying, after the election, the post-mortem about the election, do the Democrats need their own Joe Rogan? I don't know that the Democrats actually need that, but I think going forward, it would be very smart for Democrats to go on these shows. And I would love to see, Stavros doesn't hold back with what he's saying about these different politicians like JD Vance and Donald Trump, and that Bernie's the only one that he trusts. Would he say those things if those politicians were right in front of him? I don't know, but I would love to have seen somebody like Stavros questioning Kamala Harris and saying, are you going to run on Bernie's policies that are popular? I would love to see that. It would be great to see Mayor Pete on some of these bro podcasts. I would love to see Mayor Pete go on, not so much, but Theo Vaughn. I like Theo a lot. He's funny. He's not somebody that really knows things about policy. I would love to see somebody like Mayor Pete go on with Joe Rogan. I think he would be brilliant on there. Not that Joe Rogan knows that much about policy either, but he's a little bit more knowledgeable than what Theo Vaughn is, and obviously he has a bigger platform. So I think some of these voices like Stavros, he's obviously smart. He's a lot more honest than what the typical political operatives are. And to me, he's laying out well the problems of the Democratic Party. I mean, he doesn't exactly say this here. He says that he's to the left of the Democrats, but they need to be, in my opinion, Bernie has the right policies in terms of just going after economic issues and not spending a lot of time on all of the social issues that most people don't care about. Most people don't care about trans people in women's sports or whatever. Most people are concerned with their health care and their retirement and sending their kids to college and all of that kind of stuff. And, if women or trans people in sports are your number one concern, that's a really privileged position to be in, where you're not worrying about your money, you're not worrying about your retirement, you're not worrying about what happens if you get sick. And that's the key for the Democrats, in my opinion, is they don't run on popular economic policy laid out by Bernie Sanders. And Stavros hits the nail on the head, I think. Let me know what you think about this. Should the Democrats be listening to more voices like this? I mean, Trump went on all of these podcasts. Who knows what the significance they had in him winning the election? But I think it would be smart for Democrats going forward and for 2028 to actually listen to some of these people like Stavros. People are going to say, hey, they're just comedians. But he distills the problems with the Democratic Party and with our political landscape in general much more than most political operatives and much better than the media does. So let me know what you think about this appearance with Stavros on Theo Vaughn's show. Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. If you like what I'm doing with this channel and you want to see more content like this, it's growing quickly. I want to continue to grow. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. This is Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.